and the rest of the planet. Welcome to another edition of 360 Info Network. I'm Vince Robinson. Antonio is here, and our guest, Queen ElAnee, is also here. We're going to talk about a great book that she has written, and we will keep things moving today. And we're in the second week of a Mercury retrograde, and let me tell y'all, Mercury is definitely doing its thing right now. But it's all good. We are here today. I will also let you know that this. Did y'all hear that?
No.
Okay. My computer was just talking to me and it was repeating to me what I was saying.
Oh,
Oh, okay. I don't. Okay. I'm going to turn my a celebration of Marcus Garkin Museum today at 3 o'clock. So if you don't have anything to do, and maybe if you do have something else to do and you just want to be a part of something great, you can go on over to the African American Museum, 3 o'clock, 1765 Crawford Road in Cleveland, the Huff community that has been renamed Midtown, but that's another conversation for another day. Brother Antonio, anything that you want to give to us as we begin our broadcast today?
No, just hey, we're gonna try to take advantage of the day. We bring some good information, and hopefully we can beat it on down there to the African History Museum today, celebrating one of our greats. And we need more programs like that to let our children know exactly, our history, because in this day and age where we at right now, it may be a commodity. 10, 15, 20 years from now, we don't know what may take place. You know what I mean, far as information. So we'll see. You still with me?
Okay. I think
Yeah.
we are clearing up our audio problems. What I'm getting now is not feedback, but kind of an echo effect. So, there's yeah, we're still hearing it. And hopefully our engineer can make some adjustments in the studio because right now it's a little bit on the distracting side, and I honestly don't know what the issue is. So we'll work through this. But in the meantime, I want to introduce to you Queen Mother ElAnee. She has written a few books. She told me today that she had written another book that I didn't know about, so I'm glad to know about that one. But we are going to be talking about Angel of the Jordan River. So we're going to give her an ample opportunity to talk about that book, what's in it, and what we need to know. And it's interesting, ElAnee. I am familiar with a brother by the name of Mark. And I am sure that the connection that you had with him was part of the inspiration for this book, which is not to say that you weren't well versed before you all came together, but I'm sure the connection that you made enhanced what you knew or your knowledge about the subject that we're going to talk about today. So, why don't we just jump right in and talk about what the inspiration of Angel of the Jordan River was?
well, you already said what the inspiration was, but I can tell you that Mark Shuriel was my husband. We were together 20 years, and he was a doctor. He had several books when I met him, and I used to help him to format his books. So, with that, I wrote a uh, about my life. I wrote about what you and I talked about before the show started. We talked about that voice within, and a lot of people call it something. Well, I start out in the book Angel of the Jordan River telling people what that something is. And Angel of the Jordan River is a book that tells us who we are, why we are here, and where we are going as Black people. And I know a lot of people do not um, recognize all of the Holy Scriptures, but I do quote them a lot in my book. I left America and went and lived in Israel and studied the writings in Hebrew, so I can read and write it in Hebrew. And a lot of what we're going through, most of what we're going through as a people was foretold thousands and thousands of years ago in those writings. And the reason I believe that we don't subscribe to it as much as we should or could as a people is because Michelangelo drew a picture of Yeshua and drew him as a European. He used his cousin. He drew a picture of a European. So when we see a picture of a European saying that he is somebody that's to lead us spiritually or was a spiritual guide for us, we do not want to subscribe to him. So I think that was a terrible disservice. I remember when I was little and I looked through the Bible and all the angels were white, and it just turned me off. I wasn't just didn't know to ask enough questions. I do want to say that there is a book, a Bible. It's the African Heritage Bible, and it depicts all of the characters of the Bible as Black people, which they were. And a lot of the people that are in that book are friends of mine. They live in Israel because Kane Hope Felder, who was a professor, I think he was at Howard, went to Israel. He wanted to write a Bible that would not offend Black people and teach the truth to Black people. So he went there and he went to the Hebrew Israelite community and he asked them to help him with his Bible. So they took him all over. They showed him the holy places, and they even acted as models for the pictures. So the wise men are friends of mine, and Lynn even knows one of the wise men because Lynn, you remember, if you remember playing at Kilimanjaro, Sar Eliyahu was one of the wise men in the pictures. And then the picture of Yeshua himself is a good friend of mine. In fact, I talked to him the day before yesterday, and he was telling me how distraught everybody is because of the war, but they're not leaving Israel. But anyway, so that book is available to people to help you to. There are so many tricks that the adversary of mankind is trying to play on us to get us away from knowing who we are. And who, if you listen to yourself, that's something, then that will lead you to it. But so many of us have so many distractions with what the powers that be have put in our, like stumbling blocks that they put in our path. And I always say we have to use our stumbling blocks as stepping stones, that we can use them to step to the next level. I can go on, but I don't want to take up all the time.
Well, actually, you're giving some time for me to work through these technical difficulties that I'm having. I just texted Lynn and he said he's not getting the double echo, but I am. So I'm going to do the best I can to push through this. And quite
Well,
honestly,
push through.
it's
I can read
difficult
from the book
to
if you
pick.
want. I'm sorry. I said, go ahead and push through. I can read from the book if you want.
Well, give us a
Was there a
synopsis.
certain passage or something? Mhm.
Yeah, let us know, like what the chapters are, what the subjects that you're dealing with are.
Okay. So first of all, I want to say that Angel of the Jordan River is a historic prophetic. It has historic, prophetic, and metaphysical truth. So what I say is not supposition, is not theory. It is facts, historic facts, prophetic, and metaphysical truth, which means I use metaphysics, astrology, numerology, and things like that to make my point. Angel of the Jordan River was titled that because I used to be a liaison, a host in Israel. So whenever anybody would come to Israel to do a tour, I would take them around. So SELC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference, came to Israel. Now, let me just give you some context. They came to Israel because Dr. Lafayette, who was Martin Luther King's best friend right before he died, was told by Martin Luther King that Martin Luther King wanted to take his conflict resolution around the world. He wanted to teach everybody around the world how to get along with one another. And then right after that, he was murdered. Then Dr. Lafayette, at the time, he was not doctor, he was Bernard Lafayette. Then Bernard went off and then went to school and became a doctor. Sometime later, he met Senator Charles Steele, who had become the president of SCLC. So they met, and Dr. Lafayette told Senator Steele what Dr. Martin Luther King had told him, that he wanted to take his conflict resolution around the world. Being the president of SCLC, Senator Steele said, let's do it. So they put the word out that they wanted to take Martin Luther King's conflict resolution around the world. So all these countries were vying to be the first one to host the SCLC Martin Luther King Center for Conflict Resolution. France asked for it, Sweden, all these countries, I can't even remember all of them, some South American countries, everybody wanted it. But then when they found out that the Hebrew Israelites were in Israel doing what Martin Luther King said, if you remember, Martin Luther King said that my people will make it to the promised land. I might not get there with you. Hold on to that point. So anyway, when they found out that they were there, they said, we want to take our conflict resolution center to Israel first, because our people did make it to the promised land, just as Martin Luther King prophesied. Now, how did that happen? Back in the 60s, when everybody was rioting after his murder, the Hebrew Israelites got out of America during that smokescreen. Hundreds and hundreds of them got out of America because of the smokescreen of the riots. They couldn't see that all of their slaves were escaping. So anyway, they made it out by hook or crook and made it to Africa. They stopped in Liberia first, and then they went on to Israel. And they're still there in Israel, and they are the foundation for everything holy and good in Israel, because when they got there, the people were who they were. But they taught them how to be vegans, and they taught them how to be more respectful of other people. Because I mean, for a while they were doing really mean things to people. Of course, you know how they got there. In 1948, Ralph Bunche made the deciding vote that they would take the land in Israel. They had thought about going to Uganda to find a home for the Jews from the Holocaust. So they gave them the land of the Palestinians. So of course it wasn't comfortable. It was not a comfortable situation. And they're still fighting today, as we know. But anyway, so the Hebrew Israelites got there and said, this is our land. This is our land. And that is a proven fact, and we can go over that. But if you buy my book, Angel of the Jordan River, I can tell you how we should all know that is our land. But anyway, I wanted to show you a picture of the book, because when I took SCLC over to see the Jordan River and to get in the Jordan River, I turned around and I took a picture. And in that picture, I can show you the angel, which is in the Jordan River. And what do I mean by the angel in the Jordan River? I know that there is an angel guiding us there, and it's in our hearts, it's within our souls, within our spirits. The angel that has protected us for over 4,000 years, because there are ages, and I know you and Lynn know about ages and dispensations of time. But there was an age when King Herod was killing all the young Black people, the young Black boys who were going to raise up to represent their people in a positive way. And then you get the Pharaoh, who was killing our people because we wanted to represent our people in a positive way. So that there's an angel that protects us, that if we listen to our angel vents, if we listen to ourselves, that power that lives within us, then we can go on and do great things and be who we are, to be our purpose, who we came here to be. But anyway, so when I turned around, I got them on the bus and I turned around and took a picture of the river. So I took a picture of me and Dr. Lafayette, and then I turned around and just took a picture of the river by itself. And I can find, I think I can find a picture of me and him. And where is it? Okay, it's in the book. Anyway, this is the picture of the angel. And if you look right here, you can see it. And if you saw a better picture of it, then I'm going to offer that picture for sale, because the way that Amazon recreated it is kind of muted, but you can see the angel here over the river. This is the Jordan River here. So anyway, so that's why I named it Angel of the Jordan River, because the first time I ever went to the Jordan River, I put my feet in the water and I'm thinking that it's just the water. But all of a sudden I felt my atoms shaking. And I looked up, and there, as you can see, there's trees all around it. I looked up, and between the trees, the rays of spirit were beaming down on me. And I felt as if every atom in my being had separated and the spirit came in to fill those empty spaces. That was the first time that I ever got in the river. And then the second time, when I got home, I saw this big comet that flew past me real fast. And I was standing talking to somebody, but their back, in fact, I was talking to Mark Shiriel, his back was to the comet. And I just looked up, I said, look, and it was gone. And I had no way of proving anything. I had nothing in writing. I knew nothing about it. We didn't have a lot of fancy things. When you live in the desert in Israel and Dimona, you don't have a lot of access to things. I didn't even have a computer. We had a computer center, but I didn't have a computer at the time. But then I went to South Africa like a couple of months later, and something inside of me, my spirit told me to look down and buy this magazine, a very small one. I have a copy of the article that was in there, but it said in there, people in this part of the hemisphere will be blessed to see this comet. And that was the comet that I saw. So then I had a picture of it. So anyway, so yeah, the Jordan River, there is an angel that has protects us. And because if it was up to the powers that be from centuries and centuries and ages ago, we would have been annihilated as a people long ago. But we won't be ever annihilated as a people, because we have a reason to be here. We have a function. We have a purpose and a destiny to help and bring forth righteousness on earth, humanity on earth, civilization on earth. That's why everything we do, we shine at. That's why everybody in the world knows African American elites, African American leaders, African American dancers, singers. Everybody knows us. We can't name a Chinese superstar. We can't name a Japanese or Russian superstar, but everybody knows us, because there's something special in us and they cannot be destroyed. And that's what the book is about. So I'm going to read, I'm gonna find something in here. Now it's about the force that was in me since I was a little girl, how it led me all the way to the motherland. I lived on all four corners of the motherland. I lived in Israel, which most people don't know is Northeast Africa. I lived in South Africa. I lived in Johannesburg. I brought Winnie Mandela to Cleveland. I lived in Ethiopia, and I lived in Ghana. And I didn't just visit. I'm not a visitor. I lived there. I had my own house, my own everything. I still have friends there. I talk to them all the time. So here from the book, let me find something. Here's something interesting. This is a poem. Now, it's written in poetry and in prose. So I'm going to read a poem, and it's called Colors, Numbers, and Sound. And when I talk about God or the creator, I I I refer to that force as Yah. So here's the poem. Yah created the universe with colors, numbers, and sound. His sigh of release caused atoms to spin around. Spinning, the act of breathing the breath of life, joining atoms so densely you can cut them with a knife. The movement of each atom creates a different attribute, turning colors that are seen by the spiritually astute. Atoms cluster amongst others with whom they agree, thus amasses objects such that you can see. Yah created the universe with colors, numbers, and sound, yellow tulips, blue waters, and trees of green and brown. Numbers were then used to define geometric shapes, lines straight like bones, circles like the eyes of an ape. What power his imagination to say, let there be, and then there was. Why did he make such a beautiful world? Just because. Because his thoughts were so beautiful when he created them, because beauty is what they are when you see them. The hues of the horizons as the sun lights grow dim. Every beautiful thing that is a reflection of him. Yah considered, then created. Thus the universe appeared. The ethers responded to his desires. You could say they adhered, shaping themselves to align to his holy will, so eager to comply, so willing to fulfill. Remember, you are a many God, and what you speak is what you create. Consider first the thoughts you think, for when you say them, it's too late. Be careful of your subconscious mind, as it does not reason for you. It, a matter of factly, manifests your thoughts as it was designed to do. It attracts to you the love you seek. It bestows to you the hate you speak. It belittles you based upon what you think. It responds faster than you can blink. Thoughts are things. If you could measure them, you would see. Some thoughts are light and airy, while others are quite heavy. Some are superficial and vain, others are deep and profound. Thoughts allow you to roam the heavens. Some hold you down to the ground. The mind of Yah created the universe and all that there is. And since you are a many God, you create the life you live. If you want a world of peace and beauty, watch your tongue and you will see words construct reality. You possess a will, thus you are free to use colors, numbers, and sounds to express your creativity. Through them, you reveal the magnitude of your originality. Let this be the day that you begin. Use the Yah mind buried deep within. Let this be the day that you realize that Yah looks at the worlds when you open your eyes. You are the colors, numbers, and sounds I've been speaking of all of this time. You are the reason for this message and the rhythm of this rhyme. Let this be the day that you come to realize that you are a temple and Yah lives inside. You can create a world of beauty and be all that you ever thought you'd be. See yourself as a king, a queen, or even a spiritual principality. The key is to govern yourself so that you and Yah agree. Then your words will be the substance from which greatness is made, for the forces of the universe will gladly come to your aid.
That's amazing.
Colors,
So much
numbers, and
wisdom, so much knowledge that has been encapsulated in a single poem. I commend you for putting that work out there, and I am definitely of the mindset that folks need to know the platform from which you are speaking. I want to go back a little bit and just talk to you about some of the history that you brought up as you were beginning to give us the discourse. You talked about the prophecy of basically Black people from America and from the diaspora returning to what many consider the Holy Land. And as we have this conversation, there is a conflict that's taking place in Gaza, which is basically exactly where we are. But it seems as though we have some disparity between the prophecy and the current events. And I know that this is a very sensitive subject, so we can dance however we need to dance around the obvious elephant in the room. But I also know that currently there is really quite, uh, let me see if I can find the right word. I'll just say that it ain't right, that black people are being treated the way they're being treated in Israel, whether they are Fallujah, whether they are from the diaspora of the United States of America, wherever. You know, we have this dual situation where, you know, we have certain folks who are claiming, and then we have what's written in the book, whether it be the King James version or the Ethiopian version, but there are some things that aren't right about what's being propagated out there. So I want to give you another opportunity to set the record straight. And I also want you to talk about the status of the folks who are there in the place that we know of called Jamona. You can speak the name of that location, but talk about what their experience is right now. I know that you have some connection to folks who are there, and as I understand it, there have been some beautiful things that have happened, but there have been some things that have really worked against their presence in that part of the world.
Your first question was the disparity, or what was it? You want to know why what's going on in the Gaza is not fair, huh?
I just I see it, and again, this is just my personal opinion, but I see it as a distraction that
Oh,
everybody is caught up in the injustice of what's going on there, but at the same time, they're not understanding the injustice that's being done to us. If what you say is true, then that land is actually connected to us and not to the folks who are claiming connection to it right now. But I just want
okay.
to give you
So
an
in
opportunity
the
to speak.
scriptures, yes, I got you. So in the scriptures, it says it will overturn and overturn until he whose right it is. It says until Shiloh comes, and Shiloh means Shiloh. It means he whose right it is. So it's going to overturn. That land has overturned and excuse me, and overturned until it is in the hands of he who it belongs to. And we're getting close to that, because if Iran comes in, and then there's a nuclear war and everybody's running, and there it says in the Bible that we would have to flee that land and then come back and take the houses that were built. Now if you go to the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter and the 15th verse, well, the 28th chapter talks about the blessings and the curses. We already know what the blessings are. We don't have them yet all together as a people. We are getting them because that the 400 years is over and we are going, and it says that we will leave America with great wealth, and we're doing that. But the blessings and the curses, I want to talk about the curses that we would be taken into slavery by ship. Now, what other people were taken into slavery by ship? I'll wait if anybody can tell me. I thought so. So anyway, we were taken into slavery by ship, and we were sold as male and female slaves. Nobody would save us. That's all in the book. Then it says that when we got there, we'd be treated cruelly. We would have to, if you got married, another man would sleep with your wife. And you couldn't say, it's just like, oh, masters in there with, and then they had all these babies. They didn't want the babies to be black. They wanted the babies to be the white man's babies. But then they would take your babies. Some they would sell, some they would use as alligator bait. You'd have to till the farm, but you couldn't eat the vegetables. You get your hands cut off if you ate a watermelon. Um, you know all the terrible things they've done. But the main thing that I wanted to say is that you would build a house, but you wouldn't be able to sleep in it. So when I go back to what it says about Israel, how people would have to flee Israel, but we know that you flee, but we're going to come back to a barren land, and those houses will be ours. Those houses that they built will then be ours. And they have some pretty houses there. Most of them are made with marble. The floors are marble because in Africa, there's so many wood-eating insects that wouldn't go very well. A wooden floor in Africa would not work. So most of the floors are marble, and so it's a nice environment. So I'm just saying that to say yes. So you say it seemed contradictory, but it's all gonna be, how do they say, it comes out in the wash or whatever. So it's going to end up okay. But then there's always, when there's a change, there's got to be a little disruption. In my book, I call it ionization, and I relate to that with relationships. How when you're together, when your spirits float and you meet somebody, sometimes you stay, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you latch on, sometimes you create a world together. But after you've done what you're supposed to do in the process of ionization, when these two atoms, because when the two atoms come together, they look like tadpoles. One is white, one is black. They come together and they form the yin and the yang. You've seen that, the tadpole looking white attached to the black, and it's a circle, but one half is white, another half is black. They look like little tadpoles, right? You've seen that. Well, that they come together, you make a world, but when it's time to separate, that's called ionization. When atoms separate, it's ionization, and it's always a difficult time. So yeah, when there's changes, when there's things that are falling apart in destruction, it's time for something new to happen. So yeah, it seems scary, but I mean, it just is what it is. You have to have faith and just stay in the present. If we stay in the present, we don't have to worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. Stay in the present. Right now, I'm with you. Whatever happens tomorrow is going to happen tomorrow. Might not, depending on what I say and do today. So, yes, so that's that. Now, you wanted to talk about Dimona. I have it's a Bible dictionary. It was written by Charles Fillmore. I think it's called the Metaphysical. It's called the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. If you don't mind, I'm going to get it, and I'm going to read to you what it says about Dimona. Hold on, I'll be right back. It's right here. So it talks about places and things and subjects, but from a metaphysical perspective. So when you talk about Dimona, we did not choose Dimona, as a matter of fact. When the Hebrew Israelites went to Israel, they didn't choose Dimona. In fact, they were staying in Tel Aviv in apartment buildings, but there were so many that came over, they said, oh God, let's get rid of these people. We'll find somewhere else for them to go. So they put us in the desert in an old, I think it was an army barracks where, it was old, it was deserted. The walls were falling down. Rats were running in and out of the building. That's what they gave us. But it was enough land and buildings and space for us to build a village. So that's where the Hebrew Israelites created their village. And that was in the city of Dimona. Okay, so in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, this was written by Charles Fillmore, very deep brother. In fact, he wrote the book 12 Powers of Man. And I did a series on the 12 Powers of Man on my radio program, which is Paradise Horizons, which comes on every Monday night at 11 on WOVU 95.9. But here it talks about Dimona. The significance is much the same as that as Dihan. Dimona refers to the denying, the letting go, or wearing away of error beliefs that may become established in truth ideals and practices. So when we as Negroes coming out of hell, the hell of America, We had to go to Dimona to let go of all of the things that confused us and just split our atoms mentally apart from being human and decent. We became more like the slave masters, where they taught us to kill each other. They taught us not to have family. They taught us to separate from our families. All the ugly negative things that we had become. And I'll tell you, before I go on to Dimona, I want to tell you one thing. When the first time I went to Africa, and this is why I started putting so much of myself into teaching our people who we are, what we are, why we are here, and where we're going, is because I went, in fact, Hamptonian, I went with Brother Butler, John Butler, the first time I ever went to Africa. And he and I were walking. He came to see me, and my girlfriend had a house right by where they were building the U.S. Embassy. And so there were a lot of empty buildings all over, empty houses all over. And he and I were walking and out, and there was nothing. We were walking and talking. We were so into our conversation, we didn't realize we walked into a empty space and nothing but empty buildings. And out from some empty buildings, maybe like 75 feet ahead of us, came some strong looking Mandingo brothers smoking cigarettes, didn't have on a shirt, walking towards us. And I'm like, oh my God. And I had on all my gold because I thought, Africans had gold. So I took all this gold, I had gold everywhere. And they were walking towards us. Now, this was at night. And I'm thinking, oh my God, Michelle, my daughter, will never see me again. And they walked. There was no chance in running from them because we're fat Americans, and they would have beat us in a second. But when they got up to us, do you know what the leader of the pack said? He said, "Good evening, madam." Good evening, madam. I was so flabbergasted that is the soul of the roughest looking man there. And what they did to our boys in America, they made us afraid of our boys because they taught our boys to be animals, savages like them. So anyway, so Dimona being the place where you let go of error thoughts, I'm sure they didn't know anything about Dimona's power when they put us there. But it had that power before we got there, and we embellished it. And now we're all over Israel teaching them how to be decent, kind, and loving people. So, yeah, that's Dibon. And what was your other question?
I think you covered both actually.
Okay.
All right. So we will continue. I want to talk to you about the power of symbolism. Specifically, we can talk about the power of the Hebrew language, the characters in the Hebrew language, and how having a knowledge of that language and the symbols can be beneficial to you in life. You obviously are speaking some Hebrew. I don't know if you're proficient or not, but I do know that you do know some Hebrew. And I think because we are connected to that language and the power within that language, it is something that can actually elevate us as we travel this journey called life. So, can you talk about the metaphysical aspect of the Hebrew language? The sound, you talked about sound. You talked about some other things that are connected to metaphysics. So let's talk a little bit about the metaphysical aspect of Hebrew.
Okay, so as best I can define that the metaphysical aspect of speaking Hebrew, then we know that sound never dissipates. So sound always goes out, and it creates in the ethers. It's a vibration. So the vibration is a high vibration. The vibration of that particular language is a high vibration. That's the vibration that our forefathers, the language that they spoke, and they spoke it Okay, they're in Northeast Africa. When they chased them out of Northeast Africa, they ran all the way across the continent and wound up on the West Coast. That was as far as they could run. They ran all the way to Senegal and Nigeria and Ghana. There's a book called The Hebrew Isms of West Africa, where they traced everywhere they went as they ran across the continent, running from Roman general Titus and all the people who thought that they could destroy us. And everywhere we landed, everywhere we stopped, we left a little bit of who we were, a little bit of Hebrewism. And so I can say we wound up on the west coast of Africa. And then here comes the slave ships. All this was prophesied years and years ago. Here comes the slave ships, gathered us up and brought us to America. Well, the Hebrewisms, words like when I was young, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but I remember when I was young, if somebody did something nice or gave me something, my mother would say tata, and I would say tata, and that was toda. In Hebrew, that's toda, and you hear them say toda rabbah. That's thank you very much. So toda. And then the cool guys, Lynn, I know you know this because I'm sure you said it. Somebody say, how you doing, man? You say, oh, I'm copacetic. Well, copacetic is just a little twinge, because as things go on, as time goes on, people, the accent or inflections, they change a little bit. But copacetic is called Kolbasader. Kolbasader. Oh, Kolbasader. Kolbasader means I'm good. Kol is all and Basader is good. So it's all good. Kolbasader. The most prevalent Hebrew phrase that everybody in this country knows, they don't even know they're speaking Hebrew, is hallelujah. Hallel is praises, lose to, and Yah. Hallelujah is praises to Yah. So we haven't totally, but another thing though, which is important, is just on a mundane level, you don't want people talking about you and you don't know what they're saying either. So, sometimes I get on elevators and I hear Hebrew speakers talking, and I'll engage in the conversation, and they look like, oh my God, Africans, and then it expands your brain. See, we have two sides of our brain, one logic and one creative side. We want to use both sides of our brain. Africans, they speak 10 languages. Their minds are so well used. I mean, they say most people use 10% of their brain. I'm sure if we ever were to measure, and I'm sure they've measured, but they won't tell you.
Hey,
They probably.
ElAnee, I want to interject real quick because I may have to roll. I wanted to get these couple questions in before I did leave. You guys hear me all right?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
in and out, but I can hear you.
Yeah, just quickly, just a couple things. One, I just want to say for the listening audience, we have to applaud what the Hebrew Israelites have done over there, meaning being self-sustaining, how they created something out of nothing. So we all, always over here think that we can't, rebuild something, or we can't leave this country and do what we have done for somebody else, for ourselves somewhere else. So how can I say, just really afraid, to step out there and rebuild somewhere else, where other people from other countries, they don't have no problem. They're all over the place. You got Chinese and other races all over the place, but we are fearful from stepping out somewhere else, and they made it like that. They don't want their slaves to leave nowhere. They want them to stay right here and stay under these conditions that they're in. That's the first thing I want to say. So it's a way of life, their way of life, and they recreated it. Second thing is about when you said angels, and that just make me think about and get your take on how, the brainwashing has been done to us in reference to us being captive over here, where when you start talking about Africa, you always, in any part of Africa you go, and most people, indigenous people, speak of ancestors, And but we're so afraid of the word ancestors here, but but don't recognize that ain't you say angels all day long, but you won't say you're fearful when we say ancestors. So I just think that just is interesting to get your take on in reference to that. And the last thing, my brother lived over there for 30 so years as well, and by him being able to speak Hebrew, you know, and getting some of the Hebrew or some of the older texts, because it goes all the way back to papyrus and written on the walls when you start talking about spirituality and religion is concerned. But some of the recent stuff when you talk about Hebrew, Greek, some of the translations, and he would mention that some of the translations when it's translated to English is lost. I was wondering if you ever ran across any of that, when they talk about end of the world in Greek and some parts, maybe even Hebrew, where it's talk about end of an era, end of an age, which would definitely bring a different meaning to what you're saying at the particular time. 12, in our house, there's many mansions, but some people interpret it as that it's constellations, zodiac constellations and stuff like that. So your quick take on that. I'll listen for a few minutes, then I might have to run.
Okay, so the first thing you said was us being too insecure to build on our own, and yeah, that's true. That's the brainwashing. They're brainwashing us to believe that all we can do is what we do here. They're brainwashing the Africans to believe that nothing that they have is theirs, and they're going into their land and the richest continent on earth and has the poorest people, and they do their best to keep the people ignorant and confused. The leaders of the countries might have money, but the people don't. So they're under the same yoke as well. Then you talked about the ancestors versus angels, and when I talk about angels, I'm talking about, yeah, those angels are our ancestors as well, if you want to look at it that way. But when we talk about ancestors, that to me is closer to those that I can remember. Yes, those are my ancestors. When I talk about angels, I'm talking about back from the ones that have been leading us from the beginning. And so that's the difference. But yes, we do have to give honor and credence to our ancestors who have recently left. And I know I used to talk to Mark Shuriel all the time. And one time he came back, he's like, look, I got a lot of work to do. So you do your thing and let me, he's in the ancestral realm, but they've been waiting for him to get back for so long that he's busy. You talked about brothers. What did you say about brothers?
Translations
Error
and stuff,
versus age. Yeah. So an error versus an age.
Yeah,
Well,
and dealing with
this in
translation,
this
that's
epic.
right.
Yeah. So translating, and just like I said with copacetic and copacetic, things they get muted, they get watered down as time goes on. But the deliberate translations is more of a transliterate. They transliterate as instead of translate. So translate would be how it is. Transliterate, they would take, like King James, he took it and he put his spin on it. We have to read between the lines. And that's one thing that we learn how to do when you speak in Hebrew, because in the book of Genesis, it said in the beginning. Well, no, what the beginning? If there's a lot of ages and eras and epochs in time, in a beginning. So yeah, there's different when Moses put his hand in his shirt and he pulled it out, and it was white, and when he put it back in and it turned back to its original color. We have to be able to understand that. Then Moses was black. When you talk about it, said that people would learn and then they will become white. It doesn't say white, it says clear, but they changed that. So yeah, we got to look. I mean, of course you're not gonna get it all the way pure. If you can can read the original text in here, you'll get a better, clearer understanding. A white, yeah, not a white understanding. You'll get a clearer understanding. In
Yeah, so
my
I'm okay.
father's house, there are many mansions. You talked about many mansions. Yeah, well, I mean that could relate to astrology. I'd like to hear your take on it. The way that I understood many mansions is many consciousness, where we're all brothers. I mean, you might be Egyptologist, and Vince might be a Christian, and I'm a Hebrew, and then I got a sister. My best friend Akusika Nkomomaki is a Muslim. So I mean, that's many mansions. Yeah, you think this way, I think that way, but we all agree that we need to be our best self, our highest self. We need to be decent. We need to be in order. We need to be respectful. We need to give peace, love, respect to everybody. So that's the many mansions that I interpret that they're speaking of.
Right. I understand. Yeah. See, with everything with our folks, we were so deep, and and the funny thing that people think, civilization and is linear. That is always linear. As time goes on, people get smarter. Who said that? It don't have to be that way, because right now we still trying to figure out what the pyramids and some of the stuff that our ancestors created. How did they do it, and how did they know these particular things? So, well, I think we actually get dumber because we can see how we are taking care of ourselves. We still having discussions on what's good for us to eat and what's not good for us to eat. We're still having those particular conversations,
Because
So,
we're stuck.
it's cause what now?
We're stuck here, like you said.
Yeah,
We have it.
see, absolutely. What we're doing, I'm gonna say this in part is, I use this African proverb, and I think it kind of speaks for one doesn't teach the path of the forest to an old gorilla. You've been around here forever. How the new kids on the block is gonna try to tell the old kids on the block how to live.
Come on.
So my point is, we following the new kids, and I use this parody, and I've said it on the show the other day. We use this parody. You don't take a household and kick the parents out the household and let the kids run the household. What's eventually going to happen? The household is going to be dysfunctional, because you got the kids running. They eating ice cream for breakfast and doing God knows it, don't know how to pay a bill, whatever. That house is going to fall down, just like the house where we're in right now. It's a temporary move, but the point is, you can see the signs of people do not, the folks who running the show right now is not good stewards of the planet. They have messed up everything, and we have to come to our God consciousness and understanding that you're following the wrong lead. We're following the wrong lead. This ain't the lead for us to follow. And our ancestors, is waiting for us to say, when you gonna try me? When you gonna try me?
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Yeah. Oh
yep.
my God.
I mean, the man done a good job. And last piece. If he controlled all the theologian schools and all the school of thoughts, just say, if we say read, writing, arithmetic, whatever, if you control all of that, then you guess what? You control the school of thought, on how people think, what they, and the bad thing is again, I'm gonna keep saying this over and over. We keep believing that there's no other way to do something than what you've been taught by the European over here in this country. There's other ways to do something. There's other ways to have a community, run a community, raise yourself, raise your household, your purpose of a man, woman, child, all that. And our ancestors have laid this down, and because they put the bad taste in our mouth about Africa and those relationships, they spoiled those relationships. They kept us separated, and they show all kind of negative, exploitative stuff amongst us and over there as well. And we not seeking those things, but it's coming. It's slow, but it's coming. And with that, huh?
I don't want to interrupt you, so I'm just laughing.
No, I'm done. I was just signing off. I was just saying I appreciate it. All right, and I just got my little piece out there. That's all, and I'll be getting back with you guys, and appreciate you coming on the show, Sister Queen.
I hope you don't hang up, even if you're not going to be on the show. I hope you're listening, because I did want to say, I always say that we are we let the toddlers lead us, and God,
Yeah.
we've given ourselves to children. And when you
Yes.
talk about them, how long they've been on this earth, I mean, when they came out of the caves, when was that? That was like 1,000 years ago, right? We've been here forever. We've been taking care of ourselves
You got some.
forever.
You got some still there.
And we
There's a book by Bradley
and
called "The Men of the
they're going
Caucus."
back. They're going back. I just saw this thing, how they're building
Yeah.
houses in the caves because they know that there's going to be some nuclear destruction. And it also says in the scriptures that for 1,000 years they're going to be caught in those caves. They're not going to be able to come out, and there's going to be peace on earth because they won't be around. But
It also says something
so
about the sun. The sun coming back and harming them.
the
Also
sun is
says something about the
already
sun. The
wait a
actual
minute,
sun
the
having it.
sun is already harming them. I always tell them the sun, when it
Yeah.
lets off
Mhm.
ultraviolet rays, it is going down killing cancer that's on the earth. That's because you use radiation to kill cancer. It's killing all of the diseased folk on this earth. That's why they have to be scared of the sun.
Well, I know Vince about to sign off on you. Go ahead, Vince.
If y'all only knew what was
Brother
going
Vince.
on this end of things, because I've been hearing 2
Oh,
versions.
okay.
It's been really difficult, and like I said, Mercury has
Oh,
definitely been retrograding today. But I put up on the screen that you can get Angel of the River Jordan on
the
Amazon.com,
Jordan River, Angel of the
on the
Jordan River,
Jordan River. Yeah, you
Angel
can
of the
get it on
Jordan River.
Amazon, and we'll post information in the description of this video on YouTube.
Okay,
And with that, I just wanted to say to everyone that it's been quite an experience. There was definitely some knowledge shared today. I'm going to have to look at this broadcast after the fact to get what I need to get from it. Queen ElAnee, we're going to need to do this again without the distractions, and we can get into some deep stuff because I got questions to ask that I couldn't ask today. As always, we thank our engineer, Tone Harley, for bringing us together and putting us on the air like this. And thank you for listening. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Make today your absolute best day. Peace.
peace.